Declassified. 1944. Over the scorching jungles of the Pacific, where the humid air trembles with tension, a lone predator silently pierces the sky. Below, in a deadly dance, Japanese fighters desperately scramble, trying to intercept American bombers. They have no idea that something else is hunting them, a ghost in the skies. This ghost was not a ruthless killer with years of experience. He was a quiet, unassuming farm boy from Wisconsin, but by the end of the war, he would have 40 confirmed victories, an aerial deadliness record that remains unbroken to this day. How did the most modest pilot in the U.S. Army Air Forces become the most lethal instrument of war? This is the story of a man who could not be broken, of a record that cannot be beaten, and of the harsh, sometimes cruel truth of what it means to become an American ace of aces. What exactly made him so invincible? What qualities allowed him to surpass everyone, even the most experienced opponents? And what secrets does his journey from a simple guy to a legend hide? Stick with us until the end. We'd be especially grateful for a like and a subscription. And of course, let us know in the comments where you're watching from. While Bong honed his flying skills, the world around him was ablaze. In Europe, the Nazi war machine relentlessly crushed one nation after another, sowing chaos and destruction. In the Pacific, the Japanese Empire waged its campaign of brutal conquests, expanding its territories with ruthless determination. By 1941, America was still a sleeping giant, but the winds of war were already sweeping across the ocean, foreshadowing impending upheaval. Bong, like many young men of his generation, heard that call. He joined the Army Air Force's aviation cadet program, driven not by a thirst for glory or recognition, but by a simple, deep, and sincere love for flying. His instructors immediately noticed this extraordinary talent. The boy was a natural pilot. He didn't just fly the plane, he became a part of it, an extension of it. Controlling the machine was as natural to him as moving his own hand. But along with this innate gift, a dangerous trait also emerged: restlessness, a thirst for experimentation, and a penchant for risk. While at Hamilton Field in California, Second Lieutenant Bong first encountered the most advanced and, arguably, the most lethal fighter in the American arsenal, the P-38 Lightning. He instantly fell in love with this machine, and this love almost destroyed his career before it even began. Official reports, strictly censored and carefully archived, document only a series of unauthorized aerobatic displays. However, the reality was far more reckless and audacious. Bong treated the sky over San Francisco as his personal playground. He flew his P-38 down Market Street so low that casual pedestrians could clearly see the rivets on its wings. He looped around the Golden Gate Bridge, a blatant, breathtaking violation of every rule and instruction. Yes, he boasted, but with that, he was also testing limits, both his own and the aircraft's capabilities. Stick with us until the end. We'd be especially grateful for a like and a subscription. And of course, let us know in the comments where you're watching from. His commander, General George Kenney, was a man who absolutely would not tolerate upstarts and discipline breakers. He was a tough, yet brilliant tactician, in charge of the entire 5th Air Force. When Bong was brought before him, expecting to be grounded permanently, he faced a real storm. The reprimand was severe, so harsh it would have broken a less resilient man. But Kenney, possessing exceptional intuition, saw something else in the young pilot's eyes. It wasn't arrogance. It was unwavering confidence, an absolute, boundless mastery of his machine. He saw what the flight instructor had already seen: a prodigy, a genius of flight. And it is this mastery that will be the key to his future victories, which we will discuss next. Kenney, one of the war's most astute commanders, made a decision that dramatically changed the course of the air war in the Pacific. Instead of ruthlessly destroying the career of a talented young man, he decided to turn him into a formidable weapon. He kept Bong under his direct command, assigned him additional specialized training, and then gave him complete freedom of action. This decision not only saved Bong's career, but also ensured his opportunity to become a legend, whose exploits we will soon examine. By September 1942, Bong was sent to New Guinea, a place that became the true front line of the war. It was a brutal, merciless battlefield where American forces desperately tried to halt the Japanese advance. The Japanese pilots he was about to face were not novices. They were battle-hardened veterans, true masters of their craft, fighting since 1937. They flew the Mitsubishi A6M0, a fighter so maneuverable, so legendary, that it could outwit almost anything the Allies put in the sky. On paper, a farm boy from Wisconsin with limited flight hours had no chance. But it is here that his genius, which we will now analyze, would manifest. But Bong was not flying just any plane. He was flying the P-38 Lightning, designed by the legendary Clarence Kelly Johnson at Lockheed. The P-38 was a true monster, a revolutionary aircraft unlike anything else in the sky. Its twin-boom design, powered by two roaring Allison engines, gave it incredible speed and astonishing climb rate. Most importantly, all its armament, 4 50-caliber machine guns and a 20mm Lee cannon, was concentrated in the nose. This was a critically important design choice that set the P-38 apart from other fighters. Wing-mounted guns typically had to be angled so their fire converged at a specific point. Shoot too early or too late, and you'd miss. However, the P-38's firepower shot directly forward in a concentrated sawtooth of lead and high-explosive shells. If a pilot could keep a target in their sights for even a fraction of a second, the result was complete destruction. But the Lightning also had a dark side, which we will discuss in the next segment. But the Lightning also had a dark side. It was a killer. The aircraft was notoriously difficult to master. Its advanced turbochargers were temperamental and required special attention. In high-speed dives, it suffered from a terrifying phenomenon called compressibility, where shock waves formed on the wings, locking up controls and sending the pilot into an uncontrollable, deadly spin. Dozens of American pilots had already died simply trying to tame this beast. Japanese air combat masters knew Allied tactics. They lured American fighters into low-speed, maneuvering dogfights where the Zero was king. An American pilot attempting to maneuver with a Zero often died in seconds. But Bong found his unique approach, which we will reveal right now. Richard Bong did not try to maneuver. In his first combat sorties over Borneo, New Guinea, he observed carefully, learned, and meticulously calculated every move. He saw the Zeros dance in the sky and understood he couldn't win their game. So he invented his own. His doctrine was terrifyingly simple, yet incredibly effective. First, use the P-38's powerful engines to climb above the enemy. Always maintain the altitude advantage. Second, convert that altitude into speed, diving on the target at high velocity. Third, unleash the devastating firepower of the nose-mounted guns in one precise, controlled burst. Fourth, use his momentum to regain altitude and return to safety. Never linger, never maneuver, always stick to hit-and-run tactics. It was this strategy that made him invincible, and we will continue to unveil his methods in subsequent episodes. Imagine a situation where you know exactly where to strike before the enemy even thinks about maneuvering. Imagine seeing not just the target, but its future trajectory. Sounds incredible, doesn't it? Surely, you too have encountered moments when all your efforts seemed to go to waste. You aimed but missed, feeling the target slip through your fingers. What if we told you there was a man for whom this was as natural as breathing? A man who didn't just shoot, but anticipated where his opponent would fly long before they could even realize the threat. Today we will delve into the story of Richard Bong, the greatest American ace of all time, whose tactics revolutionized aerial combat. How did this unassuming farm boy manage to become the deadliest pilot in U.S. history, when other aces only dreamed of his accuracy? What made his technique so different from all others that the Japanese nicknamed his plane the Fork-tailed Devil, and him a ghost? And why, after becoming a living legend, was he unhappy away from the fight? We will uncover the secrets of his unique style that allowed him to be one step ahead, even when all odds seemed against him. We will show how his surgical precision became legendary and how he dealt with pressure that would have broken anyone else. His approach was the embodiment of the hit-and-run strategy, strike and immediate disengagement. However, behind this apparent simplicity lay true genius. His combat reports, dry and concise, reflected not only the results but also his personality, reserved, almost clinical, yet terrifyingly effective. He methodically recorded altitude, engagement conditions, and outcomes. But these records couldn't convey the main thing, the virtuoso work of his mind. While most pilots fired long, hopeful bursts of ammunition, Bong acted differently. Recordings from his gun camera, meticulously studied later by intelligence officers, demonstrated a chilling pattern: patient pursuit, impeccable positioning, a short, furious firing pass, and an immediate break from the engagement. Stick with us until the end. We'd be especially grateful for a like and a subscription. And of course, don't forget to let us know in the comments where you're watching this video from. His squadron mates were in awe of his skill. Major Thomas Lynch, another celebrated ace, compared Bong's technique to that of a surgeon, so patient, precise, and devoid of any waste. His astonishing efficiency in ammunition use seemed otherworldly. The key to his success lay in an innate understanding of deflection shooting, the art of firing not at the target's current position, but at where it would be in a moment. Most pilots painfully mastered this skill throughout their careers. For Bong, it was as natural as breathing. His tally of aerial victories grew with each sortie, first one kill, then two, in a single mission. Now a Japanese bomber, now a nimble Zero would fall to earth. He was a quiet, almost ghostly presence in the sky, appearing as if from nowhere, delivering a deadly blow with lethal precision, and dissolving back into the blinding sun. The Japanese, analyzing their losses, began to notice a disturbing pattern: brutal, high-speed attacks from above by a two-tailed devil. They gave the P-38 fighter a chilling nickname, the Fork-tailed Devil, and Richard Bong was its most terrifying and elusive embodiment. On his P-38, he inscribed the name of his sweetheart, Marge. This aircraft became a legendary sight in the Pacific skies, a symbol of imminent death for his enemies and a symbol of hope for the bomber crews he escorted. By early 1943, he had already achieved ace status. By the end of that year, his score was growing at an astonishing rate, and this quiet farm boy from Wisconsin was transforming into a living legend whose name was whispered with reverence. July 1943, over Leh Harbor, New Guinea, the air was thick with smoke and pervasive fear. A massive formation of Japanese bombers, escorted by a swarm of Zero fighters, rumbled toward Allied ground positions. To the soldiers huddled in their foxholes, it seemed an unstoppable wave of destruction, a harbinger of the end. But high above them, in the blinding rays of the sun, Bong and his squadron rose into the sky, preparing for the impending slaughter. Boom! This battle became a textbook example of Bong's developing genius, a demonstration of his tactical evolution. He was no longer just a lone wolf hunting in the sky. He had become a conductor of aerial violence, a strategist who controlled every movement. Instead of rushing headlong into battle, he kept his flight group at a superior altitude, forcing the Japanese to look up at the glint of his planes. He waited with chilling patience until the enemy formation began its bombing run, biding the exact moment when a bomber would expose its vulnerable belly, or a Zero would break formation. Only then did he give the order to attack. P-38s plunged from the sky like silver sharks, hungry for blood. Bong led the charge, his aircraft a blur of speed and purpose. He did not engage in maneuvering dogfights with the Zero fighters, knowing their advantage in close combat. Instead, he went straight for the bombers, into the very heart of the enemy formation, striking at their vulnerable underbellies. One precise burst from his nose-mounted cannon, and a Mitsubishi bomber simply disintegrated in a blossom of fire and black smoke. He didn't linger to watch it fall. He was already climbing, converting his speed back into precious altitude, scanning for his next victim. Stick with us until the end. We'd be especially grateful for a like and a subscription. And of course, don't forget to let us know in the comments where you're watching this video from. His squadron followed his lead, delivering devastating blows and instantly disappearing, sowing chaos and confusion among the Japanese pilots who simply could not track the faster, more powerful American fighters. The results were devastating. Numerous enemy aircraft were destroyed with minimal Allied losses. Japanese combat reports from this period are filled with a sense of dread, describing encounters with American fighters that attacked with a speed and precision they simply could not counter. They knew they were being hunted not just by pilots, but by true experts. By November 1943, Richard Bong had achieved 21 confirmed victories. This was not merely an impressive number. It was a historic event that etched his name into the annals of war. He was now one of America's top aces, a true celebrity in a war that desperately needed heroes and symbols of courage. General Kenny, always the astute commander, understood the value of such a symbol. He personally awarded Bong the Distinguished Service Cross, and then he did what Bong hated most. He sent him home. Bong was ordered back to the United States for a war bond tour. Suddenly, the quiet pilot who always let his flying speak for itself was in the public eye. He was celebrated before cheering crowds, his face gracing newspaper pages from New York to California. The American public embraced him. He was the humble farm boy who became a dragon slayer, a living embodiment of American ingenuity and courage. But Bong was miserable. He despised the ceremonies, the speeches, the endless handshakes. In letters to his sweetheart Marge, he confessed that his heart remained in the Pacific. With pilots still fighting and dying, he felt like an imposter, a show pony, while his brothers in arms were in the thick of it. He relentlessly appealed to General Kenny, practically begging to be sent back into combat. Finally, Kenny relented. By March 1944, Bong was back in New Guinea, and a pleasant surprise awaited him. A new, upgraded P-38 Lightning. It was a refined killing machine, perfected. It boasted improved engines, a more efficient cabin heating system for high-altitude flights, and most importantly, hydraulically boosted ailerons. This innovation gave the P-38 much better maneuverability at high speeds, mitigating one of its most significant drawbacks. In Bong's hands, the P-38J was not just a fighter. It was a true scalpel, capable of striking with surgical precision. He returned to a different war. Years of brutal attrition had taken a devastating toll on the Japanese Air Force. Many of their veteran pilots were gone, replaced by young men with limited training and negligible flight hours. The experience gap between the two sides had become a true chasm. For an American ace like Bong, with hundreds of hours of combat experience under his belt, encountering these new pilots was often, tragically, like a hawk facing a sparrow. Have you ever wondered what true fearlessness is? What drives a person to continue fighting when everything points to defeat, when circumstances press from all sides, and there seems to be no way out? We've all been in such situations, but today we will delve into the story of an ace whose name became synonymous with unwavering courage. Richard Bong, a pilot whose incredible exploits on the battlefield forced generals to rewrite the rules of war. He didn't just fly, he transformed every sortie into a legend, defying death itself. How did he manage to stay cool when others turned away, gripped by terror? And what happened when his plane, riddled with bullets, with an engine on fire, continued the fight instead of retreating? Prepare to learn how one man, facing the unthinkable, not only survived, but became the greatest of the great. Stick with us until the end. We'd be especially grateful for a like and a subscription, and of course, let us know where you're watching us from in the comments. Over time, his tactical genius only sharpened. Richard Bong perfected the head-on attack, a maneuver that required truly inhuman composure. While most pilots, faced with the terror of an imminent mid-air collision, instinctively swerved away, Bong stayed on course. His gaze, as if fixed on the enemy aircraft, never wavered for a moment, and he opened fire only at the very last, critical instant. The closing speed in these deadly duels exceeded 800 miles per hour, leaving less than a second to hit the target. Astonishing recordings from his gun camera vividly demonstrate how Bong repeatedly flew straight through the fiery rain and scattering debris of his vanquished opponents. This unique combat style soon brought him incredible fame and, as we will see, changed his destiny. By June 1944, what seemed inevitable had occurred. Richard Bong etched his name into the annals of military history. During a mission over New Guinea, he shot down his 27th and 28th enemy aircraft. In doing so, he triumphantly surpassed the legendary World War I record set by Eddie Rickenbacker, which stood at 26 aerial victories. Richard-era Bong was now officially recognized as America's greatest living fighter ace. This achievement marked a turning point not only for him, but for the entire command. Once again, we want to remind you, stick with us until the end. We'd be especially grateful for a like and a subscription. And of course, let us know where you're watching us from in the comments. General Kenny felt both pride and deep concern. He immediately issued an order prohibiting Bong from flying regular combat missions, stating that a man like Bong was too valuable to risk his life. The general argued that Bong was a national treasure, and his loss would be a catastrophic blow to the morale of the entire nation. Bong, grounded and deeply frustrated, was furious. He argued that his place was in the sky, leading his men, not sitting on the ground. A compromise was eventually reached, which, as it turned out, only enhanced his legend. Kenny allowed him to participate in flights, but only on high-priority missions and exclusively as a flight leader. Now he was not just fighting, he was commanding the fight, acting as a general in the sky. These restrictions, however, did not slow him down in the slightest. On the contrary, participation in priority missions often meant he was sent precisely where the fighting was most intense, where more than just skill was required. October 1944, Balikpapan, Borneo. A critically important mission to escort B-24 bombers targeting Japanese oil refineries. The Japanese threw all their forces into battle, desperately trying to protect vital fuel supplies. The sky over the battlefield became a swirling chaos of aerial combat. Bong, leading his P-38s, positioned his formation with the sun at their backs, a classic tactic designed to blind the enemy. He led the initial attack, diving swiftly from above and shooting down an enemy fighter directly from the sky. But as he pulled up from the attack, his own plane shuddered from a powerful explosion. An enemy fighter had managed to get on his tail, and cannon shells ripped through his right engine. Warning lights flashed on Bong's instrument panel. The engine sputtered, caught fire, and then completely failed. Most pilots in such a situation would have immediately disengaged, diving home on their one remaining engine. That would have been prudent. That would have been sane. But Richard Bong, at that moment, was neither prudent nor sane in the usual sense. He was a predator, instinctively reacting to a threat. He feathered the dead propeller to reduce drag, hit the fire extinguisher, and calmly assessed the situation. He was still flying. His guns still worked, and there were still enemies in the sky. His story continued to be written in the most extreme conditions. With his damaged and smoking P-38, he turned the heavy fighter back into the thick of the dogfight. On one engine, with severely degraded flight performance, he hunted down yet another Japanese fighter and coolly shot it down. Only then did he turn for home, guiding his battered aircraft across hundreds of miles of open ocean. When he finally landed, the ground crew was horrified by what they saw. His P-38 was riddled with bullet holes and an entire engine was completely destroyed. They declared the plane unserviceable, destined for the scrap heap, but they underestimated the deep bond between a pilot and his war machine. Bong personally supervised the repairs, and to everyone's amazement, he was flying Marge again within weeks. This single incident cemented his legend in everyone's minds. He was not just a skilled pilot, he was fearless. He was not just an ace, he was unyielding, a man who refused to acknowledge defeat. After that day, his kill count steadily climbed, approaching a mark no one had ever thought possible: 35, 36, 38. By December 1944, he had achieved 40 confirmed aerial victories. The number was staggering, an achievement so far beyond the norm that it seemed almost unreal, as if pulled from a heroic epic. In the United States, at the highest levels of command, a final decision was made. General Douglas MacArthur himself issued a direct order to General Kenney. This was no longer a request, but an categorical demand. Richard Bong was to be permanently removed from flying. His war was over. He was simply too valuable a symbol to the nation to be lost in combat. America's ace of aces was being sent home for good, whether he liked it or not. His last combat mission was on December 17, 1944. It was an unremarkable patrol passing without a single enemy contact. Unceremoniously, the combat career of the most successful fighter pilot in American history came to an end. He returned to the United States, not to the quiet farm he dreamed of, but to a whirlwind of national adoration. The war-weary country needed heroes. Richard Bong was more than just a pilot. He became an icon of hope, a symbol of the quiet, determined strength that would ultimately bring victory in the war. He was awarded the Medal of Honor, the nation's highest award for valor. In the hallowed halls of the Pentagon, Secretary of War Henry Stimson placed the medal around his neck. The official citation was read aloud, a dry military account of deeds that bordered on the incredible. It spoke of his outstanding valor and fearlessness, displayed at the risk of life above and beyond the call of duty. It mentioned his unwavering courage and brilliant leadership, as well as his relentless pursuit of the enemy, even when outnumbered and facing strong resistance. Bong stood there, characteristically quiet and modest, looking almost awkward in his dress uniform. This was a man who communicated through action, not words, who felt far more comfortable in the cramped cockpit of a P-38 at 20,000 feet than in a room full of generals and politicians. After all the ceremonies, he finally found a moment of peace. On February 10, 1945, he married his sweetheart, Marge Vattendahl, in a church in Superior, Wisconsin. For a brief moment, the deadliest ace in American history was simply a husband, a young man hoping to build a life away from the scream of diving planes and the flash of cannon fire. The war in Europe was in its final bloody throes, and the end of the global conflict finally seemed achievable, promising the peace he so longed for. Quiet Destruction: How Personality, Machine, and Tactics Forged a Legend. Have you ever wondered what the true secret is to success that seems statistically impossible? How did one man, flying one plane, manage to set a record that still captivates minds? This is a story not just about victories, but about how a combination of the man, the machine, and a tactical doctrine ahead of its time created something phenomenal. We are about to uncover how his early experience as a hunter shaped his unique worldview, how his tactical philosophy became the gold standard for fighter pilots, and how the aircraft itself, the P-38 Lightning, became the perfect extension of his will. You will learn why this man was no ordinary ace seeking glory, but rather a quiet, deadly master of his craft. Stay with us and watch until the end. We'd be especially grateful for a like and a subscription. And of course, tell us in the comments where you're watching from. Post-war analysis by Army Air Force's experts who studied his gun camera footage revealed a level of accuracy that was simply breathtaking. Bong's hit percentage, the ratio of bullets fired to targets destroyed, was extraordinarily high, significantly exceeding average pilot performance. He didn't waste ammunition. He didn't rely on luck. He relied on a cold calculation of speed, angle, and timing that was ingrained in his very being. His early life as a hunter, stalking prey in the woods, trained his mind to see the world in terms of lead, deflection, and one perfect shot. His tactical philosophy, honed over 200 combat missions, became the gold standard for American fighter pilots in the Pacific. It was a doctrine built on discipline, not aggression. While other pilots got drawn into swirling close-in dogfights, the romantic duels shown in movies, Bong understood this was suicide against the agile Japanese Zero. His system was a brutal science. First, energy. Always maintain an energy advantage through superior altitude and speed. The P-38 was a superb high-altitude fighter. Bong used this to dictate the terms of every engagement. Second, positioning. Use the sun, clouds, and the enemy's own formation to gain an advantageous position before firing a single shot. He was a master of patient stalking, sometimes maneuvering for extended periods to achieve the perfect angle of attack. Third, firepower. Utilize the P-38's concentrated nose-mounted armament. He knew that if he could get his guns on target for even a fraction of a second, the fight was over. Fourth, discipline. Never, under any circumstances, attempt to turn with a zero. After an attack pass, he used his superior speed to disengage, regain altitude to set up his next strike. He fought a vertical war, a battle of energy and physics, while his opponents were still fighting a horizontal one. And finally, the aircraft itself. The P-38 Lightning was the perfect tool for his style of warfare. Its twin-engine configuration offered a crucial level of redundancy. It could withstand an incredible amount of damage and still bring its pilot home, as Bong proved over Borneo. Its tricycle landing gear made it stable on the rough, improvised airstrips of the Pacific Islands, and its turbochargers gave it high-altitude performance that many Japanese fighters simply couldn't match. In the hands of an average pilot, the P-38 was a capable fighter. In the hands of Richard Bong, it became a weapon of historical significance. Letters to Marge revealed the man behind the legend. He rarely spoke of his victories. Instead, he wrote of his duty, of his drive to do the job effectively, of protecting bomber formations and supporting ground troops. He saw his role not as a glory-seeking ace, but as a protector, a guardian for the men who counted on him. There was no ego, no bravado. There was only the quiet, deadly efficiency of a master of his craft. Stay with us and watch until the end. We'd be especially grateful for a like and a subscription. And of course, tell us in the comments where you're watching from. As 1945 dawned, Bong's life should have been one of security and prestige. He was a hero, a husband, and a symbol of American victory. But the warrior in him couldn't stay out of the cockpit. The military, keen to harness his unparalleled experience, gave him a new assignment. He was to become a test pilot. The world of aviation was on the cusp of a revolution. Piston engines, which had dominated the skies for 40 years, were becoming obsolete. A new, terrifyingly powerful technology was emerging. The jet engine, developed at Lockheed's secret skunk works in Burbank, California. Kelly Johnson, the very man who designed the P-38, had created America's first operational jet fighter, the P-80 Shooting Star. The P-80 was the future. A sleek, futuristic machine with a single jet engine that produced 4,000 pounds of thrust, pushing it to speeds over 500 miles per hour. It was an entirely new mode of flight, a quantum leap in performance and technology, and the Army needed its best and most experienced pilots to tame this new beast, to write the rule book for a new era of aerial combat. Richard Bong, master of the piston fighter, was assigned to help usher in the jet age. He was moving from the pinnacle of one generation of technology to the very beginning of the next. He was on the front lines again, but this time the enemy wasn't a zero in his gun sight. It was the unknown. The assignment to test the P-80 shooting star placed Richard Bong at the epicenter of a technological earthquake. He who had mastered the most complex piston fighter ever built was once again a student. The P-80 was an entirely different animal. It had no propeller, no torque, just the raw, deafening thrust of a jet engine. It reacted differently. It landed at terrifyingly high speeds. It climbed as if pulled by an invisible hand. Every pilot transitioning to jets was, in the very real sense, a pioneer exploring a dangerous and uncharted frontier. Bong, with his innate mechanical sense, adapted quickly. He respected the new aircraft, studying its systems with the same quiet intensity he applied to combat tactics. He was no longer a hunter of men, but an explorer of machines, pushing the boundaries of what was possible and reporting his findings to the engineers who were literally inventing the future of aviation. For several months, this was his new life. A life of flight logs, technical briefings, and the constant high-pitched whine of a jet turbine. Then came August 6, 1945. The silence. August 6, 1945. Imagine, you are in the shoes of a man who faces unimaginable risk every day, whose life hangs by a thread between sky and earth. What is it like when, after hundreds of victories, after death has retreated again and again, it finally catches up to you on the most ordinary routine day? How did America's most distinguished fighter ace, a hero whose name became synonymous with courage, die not in combat, but in the peaceful skies of California? And why was his tragic demise almost unnoticed, buried beneath the shadow of an event that changed the world forever? Today, we will delve into the story of Richard Bong, a man whose fate intertwined with the end of one era and the beginning of another, and try to understand what truly defines the legacy of a true hero. On that sweltering, clear August day in 1945 at Lockheed Air Terminal in Burbank, California, Major Richard Bong prepared for what seemed like an unremarkable flight. He was scheduled to conduct a standard acceptance test of a new P-80 jet aircraft fresh off the assembly line. An experienced pilot, he meticulously performed his pre-flight checks, donned his gear, and climbed into the cockpit of the futuristic machine. The canopy clicked shut, isolating him from the outside world. The P-80's engine roared to life with a piercing whine. Bong taxied onto the runway, received clearance for takeoff, and confidently pushed the throttle forward. The jet instantly accelerated, pinning him to his seat, and with incredible grace lifted off the ground, soaring into the boundless California sky. However, mere moments after takeoff, something terrible happened. The main fuel pump failed. The engine, starved of vital fuel, flamed out. Below him, stretching to the horizon, lay the sprawling suburbs of Los Angeles. He was at a critically low altitude, without power, in a machine that, without a working engine, became an uncontrollable chunk of metal. For a man who had survived 200 combat missions, faced entire armadas of enemy fighters, and returned home in a damaged P-38 with one engine operating, this was his last, most desperate battle. It was a fight against relentless gravity and unforgiving time. He fought desperately for control. Years of training kicked in. The pilot attempted emergency restart procedures, but the altitude was too low. He tried to glide the powerless aircraft back to the runway. But that too proved impossible. In the last fleeting seconds of his life, as the ground rushed up to meet him, he made one final, desperate decision. Major Bong attempted to eject, but it was too late. He was too low. The P-80 slammed into a field and exploded in a fireball. Major Richard Bong, the ace of aces, a simple kid from Wisconsin, the deadliest American fighter pilot in history, died instantly. He was only 24 years old. Stay with us and watch until the end. We'd be especially grateful for a like and a subscription. And of course, tell us in the comments where you're watching this video from. On that very same day, halfway across the world, an American B-29 bomber bearing the name Enola Gay flew high above the cloudless skies of Japan. It opened its bomb bay doors and released a single, strange, unprecedented weapon. That weapon descended upon the city of Hiroshima, and in a blinding flash of light, it wiped the city from the face of the earth, unleashing the terrifying, unimaginable power of the atom. The world changed forever. News of Richard Bong's death, the passing of America's greatest war hero, was merely a minor story, buried beneath colossal global headlines, heralding the dawn of the atomic age. With deep and tragic irony, the master of conventional aerial warfare died on the very day his type of war became obsolete, becoming a part of history. 8 decades later, Richard Bong's record of 40 confirmed victories remains unsurpassed. It is an achievement that will almost certainly stand for all time. For modern aerial combat, a sterile affair of radar screens and beyond visual range missiles will never again produce the close-in visual dogfights that defined World War II. The era of the gunslinger race, as it was known, had irrevocably ended. The true measure of Bong's impact was not just in the 40 enemy aircraft he destroyed. It extended far wider. To the bomber crews he shepherded to safety, to the ground troops who looked to the sky for his protection, and to the tactical doctrine he pioneered, which saved the lives of countless other pilots. His methods became the bedrock of American fighter tactics for years to come, shaping future generations of air warriors. General George Kenney, the man who saw the genius behind the rule breaker and always supported Bong, later wrote that he was the greatest fighter pilot he had ever seen. Kenney noted that Bong's incredible success stemmed not from reckless aggression, but from its complete opposite, a calm, calculated precision. He made killing easy because he was an unparalleled master of reliable, repeatable tactical principles that always led to the desired outcome. Today, at the Richard Bong Veterans Historical Center in his home state of Wisconsin, his Medal of Honor is on quiet, reverent display. A restored P-38, bearing the name Marge on its nose, stands as a silent tribute to the man and his legendary machine. It is a powerful reminder of a time when a quiet young man from the Midwest could climb into the cockpit of a fighter plane and, through sheer talent and iron discipline, change the course of history. The battlefields where he fought are now silent. The skies where he dueled with enemies are empty, but his record remains etched in the annals of military history. 40 victories, 200 missions, one unbreakable legend. The farm boy who became America's deadliest and most elusive ace, whose story continues to inspire decades later.